Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create in Azure a process to move data from a source to a destination with Data Factory. In this case, our source is going to be an API that is going to return us data in JSON format, and we are going to store it in Azure in something called Table Storage. Azure Table Storage is a service that allows us to store structured NoSQL data in the cloud. From there, we will be able, for instance, to consume the data with a Power BI, to use it as a source to feed the data warehouse, or to use it for other reporting or non-reporting purposes. To be able to create this process, on the Azure portal we need to create the following resources. We will need a storage account, and on it we are going to create a table storage, and we will need a Data Factory v2. So let's start opening the Azure portal, and we are going to look for the storage account. We are going to add a new one. We are going to choose my subscription, and we are going to choose my testing resource group. We are going to name it as the table storage. The location is fine, in West Europe. We are going to change the replication to LRS, which is the cheapest one. Any of them is valid, but for this exercise this is enough. And we are going to click on Create and Review, and Create. As you can see, the deployment has started. It will take some seconds. And now we can go to our new resource. Here we can see the different storage options that we can create. We are now interested in the table storage one, so we are going to click on it. And we are going to click here to add a new table, calling it JSON employees. And then click OK. Here we have it. Okay, before I start creating the next resource, the Data Factory v2, I would like to show you the answer of the API that we are going to consume. In this case, it's a public API that you can consume from your machine without any kind of authentication. You can see here the URL, and if we call it, you will see that it's returning data about employees. We have here the ID, the name, the salary, and some more data. Okay, now that we saw the data, let's go back to Azure and create our Data Factory v2 resource. I'm going to look for it and click on Add to add a new one. I'm going to call it Habibi 10. I'm going to give the version 2. The subscription is okay. And for the resource group, testing, that is the one I have. I'm going to get the location in West Europe, and I'm going to disable the Git. Click on Create, and the deployment will start. Okay, we are going to the resource, and to start creating something here, we need to click on the Author and Monitor button. A new tab will open on your browser with the Data Factory. Here we have a kind of fast access to the specific elements that we're going to create, but we are going to click in the Author button at the left. Here we can see some resources that we can create as pipelines, datasets, data flows, connections. So let's start creating the connections. We are going to click on them, and we are now in the Linked Services tab. The first thing that we need to do is to create a connection to our API. So click on New, and we can see that there is a lot of options and not necessarily Azure related. The one we need for the API is the REST. So we are going to look for it, choose it, and continue. It's going to ask us for the name. Employees API, we are going to call it. We will keep the auto-resolve integration runtime, and we are going to paste the base URL. We already saw that there was no authentication, so from the combo we are going to choose Anonymous. And we are going to turn the server certificate validation to disable. It's done, let's create it. There we have it. Now let's do the same with our destination, the Azure Table Storage previously created. New, we are going to look for it. Here it is. Continue. And I'm going to keep the Azure Table Storage 1 name. In the authentication, I'm going to use the account key. In the Azure selection method, from Azure subscription is fine. I'm going to choose the evaluation subscription and the table storage we created previously. You need to keep in mind that the Azure Table Storage that we are going to consume belongs to our own account. If you want to use the destination table storage for other personal subscriptions, you will probably need to use the SaaS URI authentication method, but that's not our case, so we are going to keep it like this. We are going to create it, and now we already have two linked services, the source and the destination. Now we need to create a dataset for each of them. So in the dataset, click on the three dots and new. We need to choose what kind of dataset it is. So we are going to choose the REST. We are going to call it API. And in the connections tab, we have the options to choose a linked service. We are going to choose the one that we have created. And we are able to test the connection. It's working. Let's create another dataset for the destination. New. Table storage. We are going to call it employees. And in the connections tab, we are going to choose the linked services we created for this. A table storage can have several tables, so we need to choose the one that we want for our content. In this case, the JSON employees table. We can test the connection, and we can also check the current content of the table clicking on Preview Data. In this case, we have just created it, so it's empty. Okay, we finished with the linked services and with the datasets, and now it's time to create our pipeline. So I'm going to click in the three dots and New Pipeline. We are just going to move data, so we are going to uncollapse the Move and Transform, and we are going to drag and drop the copy data. From here, we can also execute a data flow. Let's configure the copy data box. We are going to call it API to Table Storage. And now let's go to the Source tab. If you see there is a red symbol over it, that means that there's something pending to be done in this tab. The same is happening in the Sync tab. Here we need to choose a dataset. In this case, the API dataset. If you see here, we are able to call the API and check the output clicking in the Preview button. Here is the data that we are expecting to load from the employees. Now we are going to the Sync tab. Select the dataset from the table storage, and we can choose the type of insert that we want, if we want to merge the data or if we want to replace it. In our case, we want to load it each time, so we are going to replace it. Next thing that we need to configure is the mapping. If we click in the Import Schema, it will auto-detect the API schema. Here is the schema of our API. The data item is an array, so we need to check it, and for the rest of the columns, we should give an exit name for each of them. In the case of the status item, we are not interested on mapping it, so at the left side, we have a box that we can uncheck if we don't want the column to be mapped. Okay, now the mapping is complete, but there's still something pending. We wanted the insert type to be a replace, but we need to specify the row key to do a proper replace. So in the row key value selection, we need to choose the option Use in column, and in the row key column, we need to select the ID field. We can validate it, it's fine, and we can debug it to see if there is any issue during the execution. In the Output tab, we can check the execution result. As you can see, it took some seconds and it was successful. If we go now to the employees dataset and we do a data preview, we don't see the no data message anymore. The debug process filled the table. We can see here the employees, the names, the ages, the salaries. Okay, everything seems to be working now. If you check, there is a button in the top bar called Publish All that is in blue and is telling us that we have 4 things pending to be deployed. This means that if we close now the Data Factory, we will lose everything that we did. So let's click on it, and now everything is going to be deployed. Okay, here is where we finish our process. In the pipeline part, we can also create triggers, or we can trigger a process manually. Every time that we trigger it, a run happens. To check the runs, we can go to the monitoring area in the left bar of the screen, and here we will have the results of all the runs. I hope you found this video useful. If you are interested in learning how to consume the data that we inserted in the table storage from Power BI, I suggest you to take a look at the next video. Thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to give a like if you found it interesting.